Really, the topic that I feel most salient today is fear, especially right now with coronavirus and people really experiencing a lot of fear. And the big question out there is, should I be concerned? Should I be anxious? Am I fearful enough? These are all the wrong questions. And it really highlights a real problem with the way that we see fear in our culture. And it has to do with separating information to be acted upon from fear and confusing the two. So, I've struggled, since my early 20s with panic attacks. And so over the years, I've gotten really good at how to respond to fear and how I've learned to dance with it. And one of the biggest ways is to separate the information from the chaotic internal response. And that those two things don't necessarily need to be linked. So, for example, let's take coronavirus for example. I was hanging out with a friend yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, I don't even watch the news. I don't even look at it. I hear about things from friends, and that's it." And I'm like, "Oh, but then you're not informed. Then you're not going to be able to like keep up with the news and everything." And then he said, "Oh, yeah. Well, as soon as I heard about the coronavirus, I ordered a whole bunch of Purell. Um, I ordered a bunch of masks, and I checked in with my kids' school, and this was like a month ago. And here I'd been checking the news the whole time, but I was late to the Purell game. I was late in I couldn't get any, right? And he was like, "Oh, well, you want me to send you some Purell?" I was like, "Yeah." But here's the guy that doesn't even look at the news. It's because when you're focused on fear, you get focused on fear and navigating fear instead of actually doing the things that would protect you from the thing that you're afraid of. And I think that what's happening and what, is just part of modern culture or part of our makeup is that we thrive on fear. We like to feel fear, even though that seems like a crazy thought. I think we actually want to feel it. I think there's a dopamine hit. There's an excitement around it when we can feel fear. Maybe it makes us feel alive. Maybe it brings us back to the being cavemen and women out in the thing, fearing a lion. I don't know what it is, but it certainly doesn't work. Here's what I came to is that fear is very good at alerting us to something we should pay attention to. But once you've paid attention to it and you've taken it seriously, additional fear is pointless. Then every time the fear would come back up again, it's like there's this like person in my head who's like, "Wait a second, didn't we already have this thought? Yeah, we already had this thought. Let's not bother with that one then." And not letting the little voice inside that's so fearful run the show. Reminding that voice that you've heard it. You've heard what it has to say, and you've made commitments to do it, to follow up in the ways that are necessary to address what that fear was pointing to. But that's the difference. We want to solve what the fear is pointing to and deal with the fear itself separately. It's kind of like the immune system, right? When the immune system blows up, when you get a lot of like inflammation, for example, right? The inflammation is responding to something it perceives in the system. And there's the thing it's responding to that could be a real problem. And then there's the effect of an inflamed system, the immune system that is sort of like responding to that thing. And as we know, all kinds of inflammation causes all kinds of problems. And, so it's essentially our bodies have a fear system too. And the fear system is good because it points to something. But the fear system itself, when it's too inflamed for too long, that causes its own bunch of problems. We have the same thing going on with our minds. And it's really important to get this distinction because the fear will eat you alive. Here's the other thing that's worked really well for me. And that is this idea that death is totally safe. When I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is I die. Well, there are, billions of people who've done it. The world goes on. I am but a speck. I'm going to go somehow, right? And if this is my time, then this is my time. And so one of the ways that I can handle fear is by saying, what's the worst case scenario? And can I be okay with the worst case scenario? And usually the worst case scenario is I die, right? It's a good thing to reference because I think so much of fear is really fear of death in disguise as whatever problem is showing up. And so as we get more comfortable with our own mortality or our own immortality, depending on your spiritual perspective, the less fear has a grip on us. And, this idea the worst thing that can happen is I die is also makes every moment so precious because it's the limit of life that makes every moment so precious. And so therefore, if life is so precious, why will I spend it being fearful? Why will I spend it being fearful? Let's just do it together. Let's just take a big, big, deep breath. Notice the fear dissipate. If there's any fear going on in you right now, just give it a shot. Just give it a big, deep breath. Let it out. You gotta take the trash out. It's the other thing. And that's why meditation and exercise and changing your environment, getting outside, getting sunshine, all these things really create a change in perspective and a change in your system. Because I think fear is very much in the body as well. I think we hold it in specific areas. I actually think inflammation, when we're talking about the actual immune system and then our mental immune system, I really think that they're very much related, and that one causes the other and vice versa. I've begun this practice, which I'm finding particularly valuable, and that is whenever I feel a tension inside, a fear, a resistance, a discomfort, I ask myself, what is it that you're having a hard time being with? And when I get the answer, which usually comes pretty quick, I then say, can you be with it? And then I get a chance to answer that question. And almost every time, the answer is yeah, I can be with it. And the reason I can be with it is because death is totally safe. And radical acceptance of what is a path to liberation. And so whatever it is, it could be like something, just like, I don't know, I just feel like off. What is it that I can't be with right now? And it could be like I have low back pain, or I'm hungry, or I don't like the way that person looked at me, or I'm afraid of the coronavirus, or I am feeling unresolved about some relationship. Can you be with it? And the answer is yes, usually yes, but it takes the conscious practice of noticing that there's something I'm not being with, and then practicing being with it. And practicing the courage to be with it. And what gives me the like basis for being with it is the fact that not being with it doesn't do anything, right? It's like the most mature way to respond to anything, because you can't go back in time. You can't change anything. All you can do is access your current resources and your current big heart and your current ability to accept all that is in order to greet that moment with presence and with care and with appropriate action. And so fear it can cause us to overcorrect, right? So you're riding down the road and there's a bunny in the middle of the road. And instead of just going like this and like this, we wind up going like this, and then we see we're heading towards something over there, and we go, whoa, and then we cross over and run into another car, right? Tried to avoid the bunny, ran into another car, right? This is what we do in ourselves all day long. We overcorrect because we're not, when you're deciding what to do out of that fear voice, out of that, you're going to do weird shit. But when you respond, when you let the fear alert you to something, and then you go over, you listen to it for a minute, then you come back to your center and be with whatever it is. Then make a decision about what to do from there. That is how you're less likely to overcorrect or to lose control of the steering wheel because of how you're responding to the fear. As usual, this is just as much for me as it is for you to remind me and remind you of the wisdom inside. Thanks for spending your time with me today. Have a great day.